Hello, I'm back. And today I'm going to follow up a video I did a little while ago about comic books basically having problems in the industry, where I was asking why we're having these issues. But today I'm spinning it around because I think I know why comic books aren't doing too well. I think I know why, dare I say it, comic books are dying. And it's not just wokeism. Okay, there's more to it, so stick with me. The first thing I want to talk about is that people don't know where to start with comic books. If we're directly comparing them to manga, which is fair to do because manga is basically a Japanese comic book and it's accelerating like crazy in the market right now and basically eating up the entire market for comics. People don't know where to start. If I want to read Dragon Ball Z, I can pick up Dragon Ball Z issue 1. And then I can finish that and I can pick up Dragon Ball Z issue 2. And then 3 and 4 and 5 and so on. And yes, there's a lot of issues, but I know exactly where I need to start and where it finishes. With comic books, it's not like that. If you want to, say, read the latest Batman story arc, you'll get to a point where you'll have a little bit down the bottom that says story continues in Batgirl issue 7 or Deathstroke issue 5 or Justice League America issue 4. So then you go, oh, okay, and you track down Justice League America issue 4 and Batgirl issue 5. And you try to read them, but guess what? You don't know what's going on because you've got to read the other Batgirl and Justice League issues. So you'll pick them up and you'll start trying to read them. And then it'll say, well, this story continues in Nightwing, issue 12. And so it creates this like tree, this flowchart of what you need to read in order to actually get the beginning, middle, end of the story. And it's never completely understood. And then on top of that, DC and Marvel love to reboot their comics all the time. Look at New 52 and Rebirth just recently. So every, 5-6 years, they reboot the entire comic and start again. And everyone's confused. You just don't know where to begin and how to start. And it's just too hard to follow. And that is one of the most off-putting things to a new comic book reader. I've been talking to so many comic book readers recently, or people who wished or want to read comic books, and they all say the same thing. I don't know where to start. It's too confusing. So that is the first reason why comic books are dying. Now, on to issue number 2. People would rather watch the movies because of issue number 1. They want to read Batman. They want to watch Avengers. They want to know what's going on. They want to like comic books. But it's too hard. But they can just go and rent or buy or watch, a comic book movie, Marvel is getting that way. We'll get into that in a minute. But, you can just go and get the Dark Knight trilogy. Don't do it. It's terrible. But you could, and you would get a beginning and a middle and an end to a story. And you can just pick up Aquaman and get a whole story. It's easy. It's easier. People can just watch it. It takes less time and they get the same enjoyment out of it, sadly. So yeah, people would rather watch the movies. Now, you're actually seeing this same effect in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because there are so many movies now. If you weren't already on board, it's off-putting because you're like, oh, I really want to watch that new Spider-Man movie. And then, Joe from around the corner's gone, well, if you're going to watch the Spider-Man movie, you've got to watch all of these if you want to know what's going on. And then you look at this pile of movies and you go, ugh, I think I'll just go and watch Fast and the Furious. Like, that's the thing. So that is reason number 2 why comic books aren't selling. So what do we do about that? Well, I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but maybe something like a DC Essentials comic book, a thick hardcover book that has like a Batman Year One, and then maybe, like The Long Halloween, and then maybe Under the Red Hood, and it just tells this singular Batman story in a chronological order, and it has all the issues you need to read in the order to read them. Maybe if DC and Marvel started releasing comics like that, and they marketed those comics, which we'll touch on later, but maybe if they did something like that and they gave people an actual area to start, like, this is the essential, start here. Maybe if they did that, they might be able to convert some more people over to comic books. But unfortunately, that's not the only problem. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, the next problem and reason why comic books aren't doing so well, is the price. They're expensive, and it's not good value for money. And look, I understand. It's full color. It's way more detail than you get in a manga. There's the backgrounds, I get it. I'm making a comic book right now. I understand exactly how much work goes into one. So it's justifiable, but at the same time, you're getting a 10-page comic book with about 4 pages of advertisements in it. Whereas for the same price, I can buy a manga, which is the size of a small novel. Which will, think about it, value for money. If you're a teenager with limited income, what are you going to buy? The thin little comic book on the shelf? Or a manga? I know which one I would pick. None, because you'd pirate things when you're a teenager because you can't afford this stuff. Which is why you should go to arkhaven.com and read top quality comics for free. Now, touching on that is the print quality. Manga, they're in these little bound books and they last forever. I know people, and I personally have some manga that I've owned for like 15 years. And it's still pristine and perfect, and I can read it anywhere I want. I've got some manga from when I was like 5. That's probably like over 25 years old now. And it's still fine. It's absolutely fine. And yet comic books, they're thin. They're on this sort of cheap... Most of them are on this sort of cheap, flimsy paper. It's very easy to tear, stick, and have these issues. The ink starts to fade after a while, and you got to protect them in the sleeves, and they have this reputation of being, flimsy and weak. And unfortunately, that's a problem, because you have to pay quite a lot for these days. Like, a single issue comic book where I am can be anywhere from $10 to $25. That's not cheap. That's half my weekly grocery bill for a comic book. And that is another reason why comic books aren't doing so well. And now, of course, the final issue, wokeism. So, you figured out where to start, and you're willing to tackle that landmine. And you've got the money. And you don't care about the movies. And you've picked up a comic book, and you're like, I'm going to read this Batman comic. Or Superman comic, for this example. And you open it up, and you're like, I can't wait for Superman to fight all the bad guys. It's going to be so exciting when he fights all the bad guys. But he doesn't. Instead, he's making out with his pink-haired friend. And you're sitting there going, I thought this was going to be a superhero comic, not a romance novel. And you put it down, and you don't buy another one. Because people don't want to read superhero comics that are actually weird, agenda-pushing romance novels. They just don't. That's why they read the manga, because the manga, they can go, oh, he's fighting the bad guy today, and the next issue, he's fighting a new bad guy, and it's exciting, and he's stronger than the last bad guy, and oh, what a twist. Like, and look, I don't read manga that much anymore because they're all the same these days, but fact of the matter is, you get what's advertised. And with all this wokeism and the ESGs infecting comic books, someone who's going to climb all these sort of, plateaus on the mountain to get to the peak, only to have the peak not be what was advertised, of course they're going to be upset. And of course they're not going to continue to buy. I mean, what do you think they're going to do? And so they're going to turn around and they're going to do exactly what they're doing, which is buy manga. It's not rocket science. So let's recap. Wokeism. They're too hard to follow. People don't even know where to begin. They flooded the market with the movies. They're too expensive for how much you get in comparison. There's no marketing done on any of these things, and the print quality sucks. That combined is why people aren't reading comics. There's probably a few other issues there, but I think they all tie in to these sort of 7 points that I'm making. What do you think? I mean, I've spoken to a few people, and this seems to be the stuff that keeps getting brought up. And I'm trying to do what I can by suggesting like standalone comics and stuff people can read and giving people launch points. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think this is why comic books are failing? Is it another reason? Am I just a douchebag? I'm cool with that. Let me know. And thanks for watching, of course. Have a nice day.